Welcome to the Expansive CEO podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman, founder of Expansive CEO and X Squared Wealth Planning. Buckle in as we explore how to create true prosperity and build a business and a life that expands beyond yourself and makes a dent in the universe. Welcome, everyone, to this special episode of the Expansive CEO podcast, where you're not just getting one female financial advisor, but instead I have three of my dear friends and colleagues here with me today so that we can talk about what it looks like when you come from a place of financial planning, comprehensive wealth advising first, and how each of us does that a little bit differently. So the two aspects that are really important to me here is that, yes, I am a wealth advisor. Yes, I am an investment manager. All four of us on this screen are, and yet there is no competition. There's no competition among how we work or who we work with, because we each know who we serve, why we serve them, and there is more than enough for everyone in our respective spaces. And so when we come together and we talk about things, we have conversations that are uplifting for each of us, but that we really want to extend this to the whole industry as well. So you know me, I'm Hannah Chapman. I'm the founder of X Squared Wealth Planning and Expansive CEO, where I help visionary entrepreneurs through tailor-made financial planning, bespoke investment planning, and transformational money mindset coaching altogether. And I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I've also got Kristin Printon, who is the co-founder and vice president of Moxie Wealth Management in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Kristin, can you say hi so we can hear your voice?
Hello.
And Jamie Hanson, who is the co-founder and investment advisor at APMA, got it, investment management. Oh my gosh, I'm going to start over with that one. Jamie Hanson, who's the co-founder and investment advisor at Akamai Investment Advisor in Madison, Wisconsin. Jamie, can you say hi?
Hello.
And Lisa Sakai, who's the co-founder and financial consultant at One Vision Retirement, and she is in Prescott, Arizona. Lisa, can you say hi?
Hi.
Beautiful. So I would love to go kind of round robin popcorn style here and talk about what it means to start from a place of financial planning first, having a focus where, when we hear financial advisor, that doesn't actually have it's not a protected term, right? So pretty much anyone can just say they're a financial advisor, and then really their focus is life insurance, or really their focus is annuities. And that's all they really do. They don't actually look at a comprehensive, take a comprehensive view of someone's situation before making investment management recommendations. And I think that's the biggest difference. So Kristin, I want to kick it over to you. What do you see in your practice, and who do you work with, and how does that process start for you?
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it may help with knowing who I work with first and then answering the question, because I think how you approach planning can change based off of who you work with. So for me, I tend to work with women who are the primary wage earners in their household. I think you attract like-minded people. And for me, that's the role that I play in my household and in my family. And so it tends to be who I relate with the most. And when I was really starting out, I've been doing this 12 years now, I focused a lot on attorneys. So a lot of my practice is still female attorneys. It's expanded from there. But I think so many of the women that I'm working with are just overwhelmed. They're busy and they don't know what they don't know. And for me, that is really how we approach planning then, is clearing up a lot of those unknowns and just the certainties and the what if questions that are rolling around constantly, taking up a lot of mental space. Because while the investments are important, I approach it more from the perspective that I don't even know how to direct your investments. I don't know what to be investing in. I don't know what allocation to have. I don't know what other separate products maybe to be looking at until I know what your goals are. And that is really, to me, the benefit of planning. It's helping clients see, what do you have? Where is it at? What are we trying to accomplish? The priority order for all those items. And once I really know what's truly important to you, then we can go out into the marketplace and figure out what makes the most sense. But it just doesn't make any sense to me to start with a product first, which is where I think so much of our industry is at, and then try to just magically fit that into someone's situation, opposed to starting with their situation and goals first, and then shopping out when it makes the most sense.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the difference, right? That's the difference between, I know, like when I first start working with a client, or even on like a prospect meeting, I will ask, like, have you ever worked with a financial advisor before? And what was that experience like? And very few people have actually worked with an advisor who starts that way, right? Rather than starting with, if you're selling a product, you've got a hammer and everything looks like a nail.
100%.
Right. And instead, like looking at it being just really, really open to what are all the different solutions that might fit once we know what your situation is fully. And so I know that that's a big difference for each of us too, being in the independent space. That's one of the focuses, when we meet in our own masterminds, like when you're independent, you get to choose. You get to really be focused on what the client needs, and then go out to the marketplace and see what the right fit is, rather than like, oh, well, this is what we can offer, so we're gonna like figure it out. But yet, Lisa, what about you? How, like, who is your client, right? That's different from Kristin's client, and how do you start?
Yeah, so I tend to work a lot with female professionals that work in like Fortune 1000 companies, higher C-suite types, and their families. So similar to Kristin's, but a little bit more targeted on the employee side. And so I would say that probably, I started, just to give background, and I think a lot of us did, I started on that side of where it was insurance first, and it was to do planning, was to find a space to fit the insurance in, essentially. And I realized that that wasn't what people were focused on. They were focused on the actual planning part of it. And that was the part that was making the biggest impact for them. And I also didn't like the feeling of that kind of slimy, you've got to fit the insurance in if it works or doesn't work kind of thing. So I really started to focus on the planning first. It gives me an idea of the client better, so I can figure out their risk tolerance. I can figure out a lot of things, because if we're discussing a lot of different issues that go with their planning, then I get a better idea of what their track history is. Did they pull out in 2008 and 2009? How do they view that? How do they deal with the pandemic pullback, that kind of stuff? It helps a lot, and having those conversations helps give the right advice for them. So I would say that's kind of where I come from it at. And then the other thing is, I found that there's a big segment of employees at companies that have nobody to talk to. And that's mainly because in the independent space, people are very focused on AUM focused.
And which means assets under management.
Exactly. Yeah. Assets under management. So you have to have a certain amount of assets to work with somebody. And I didn't want to do that. So I actually was able to develop a monthly consultation so that people, can have their 401k, doesn't have to be managed by me, to still get to work with somebody, because the advice is so important. And it's the root of everything. Making the choices in their retirement plans is from their planning. So I have clients who call and say, I don't, I've got a bonus. What do I do with it? Do I put some in the 401k? Do I do, and that kind of stuff. And that's really what they're concerned about, is just getting that ongoing help and advice for their personal situation.
Yeah. So you're opening up, and this is a great lead in for Jamie
Nice
too,
segue.
right? Like perfect, because there is so much, there are so many financial decisions that we're making all the time. And we really, like, the industry itself has really put up a wall, to getting to that advice in some ways. And there's, to be fair, there is a place for an asset management model, and there's a place for an advice only model. And like, knowing what you as an advisor love to do the most is actually super helpful in helping direct that too. So Jamie, you do, it's like, if you were to ask, like, Jamie, what do you do? It's like a million things, right? But really it's the same. It like pulls in under one beautiful umbrella, and you get to, talk to people from, coming from what's, this is the question, how do we filter it down? So tell us a little bit more about your model, because it's different from the rest of us too.
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly a lot of what Kristin and Lisa have already said, I mean, is our focus as well, is really just that knowledge base and just helping people answer those questions. But I think the best way to like picture it is imagine, a million different puzzle pieces and trying to fit all those puzzle pieces together to get your picture. You might be able to build some of the border out, have some of those questions answered via Google or a friend or whatever the case is, but really to put that picture into focus, you need somebody who knows about all those things. So we bring in also to the aspect health insurance, both pre-65 and post-65 into Medicare. We do talk about long-term care strategies. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have to do insurance, but just when this happens, if it should happen, what do we do? And so what we find is a lot of people will come to us as a referral because they are actually looking for somebody to write a plan. They may already have a financial advisor, if you will, who is managing assets, but they're not able to answer the questions. And so they come to us with literally what I say is, did you try to Google that? And they can't figure out how to get that information to speak relevantly to their situation. So they are looking for someone to do that. And by going through that planning process, not only do we establish those goals, and most people think goals are like, I want to travel in retirement, I want to be able to do this or that. But the goals would also be, how much income do I actually need? And understanding like which Medicare supplement or Advantage plan should I choose? Like what is best for my situation? And sometimes it's also, how do I help my grandkids go to college without, giving everything away that I have? And so bringing in all those pieces really makes that picture come into focus and more complete. And the best feeling is when and somebody's done with that process and you can feel it in the room that they are lifted, because now that they know that their investment is only like one small piece of the whole entire puzzle, and that they don't have to rely just on the stock market to make their wishes come true. It really comes down to, what decisions are they making? And that's also where a financial advisor, and I did get my behavioral financial advisor certification to help people better understand their relationship with money, and also help them navigate through some of those difficult times, whether they be something that's really exciting, like a job promotion, or potentially a job loss, because the emotions are the same, right? They're either real high or they're real low, and we tend to make poor decisions during those times. So having somebody available that can walk you through that, who can see that whole plan and not just this tiny little fragment of time where everything feels like it's pinned on that, can be a great assistance. And so that's that planning piece that we all provide.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kristin, I want to hear from you again. Let's go back around. And what's coming up? What do you want to respond to?
Yeah, well, I think, as Jamie said, for me, it's something that comes up all the time that I say to clients, and even with potential clients in a first meeting, I talk all the time about when you know better, you do better. And I think what you're hearing all of us say is that education and context for decisions, and I think helping clients make really smart, informed decisions is really important for all of us, and not from any kind of place of judgment either. So knowing that it's this safe space and knowing that, talking with someone through, hey, I just had a conversation, before this of someone talking through, DoorDash deliveries and food, and like they like to eat out, and like that's an important part to them. Like they're kind of foodies, and like that's fun for them. They like going to new restaurants, and to know that I'm not going to come in and say, well, you shouldn't do that because that's not the smartest or most efficient way to do things. But instead it's acknowledging, well, if we're going to have this pretty extravagant, lifestyle, eating out kind of piece of things, that's perfectly okay, as long as you know that that might mean that, paying for college or retirement maybe gets pushed back a little bit, like things like that. It's just about understanding how all these different pieces are all connected. And like I said, I think when you know better, you do better, but so many people just don't know what they don't know. And how can you ever possibly educate yourself on that when you don't even realize that that's part of the problem? And I think that's what's so exciting about what we do. I think it's so empowering to people when you can educate them on that. And so for me, that was what was coming up of hearing, all of you ladies talk through, because I know we've all chatted about it before, but for me, that's so exciting. And like, that is where my passion is. I love having those conversations, and for people to see that your plan doesn't have to look like anyone else's. And that's perfectly okay. It's not for me to tell you, like, you have to retire by this age and you need this amount of money. Like, let's figure out what you genuinely want to create, and how can we use money as a tool to design the life that you want. But we can only do that when we've got the planning, when we know what you're trying to accomplish and what's truly important and like what you value most. I think that is the most exciting piece, when you can take those values and align them into like, now here's reality and here's money, and how do we use that in a way that supports us and serves us, opposed to being this like maybe scary and overwhelming or intimidating subject, because it is for a lot of people.
Yes. And I'm gonna tease open something that we have all experienced on the screen, being, women who are less than 70 years old. The fact that
by a lot,
yes, by a lot. And not to say that disparagingly at all to any piece of our industry, but there has been a huge shift in what clients and other people, the information they have access to. So Jamie, you called out the, did you Google that, right? There is tons of information available online. Some of it is great, some of it is terrible, and some of it you can't sift through on your own if you don't understand how taxes affect this decision, how different things work together. Is the IRS going to come after you if you create some intricate trust thing to, evade them? Yes. Like there are so many strategies that we hear about, and that, sometimes out in the marketing ethers, you'll hear, well, rich people do things differently, or, there are secrets to building wealth that you don't know, so people kind of have this roadblock to talking to financial advisors already, right? Because like we've said, there's so much information available out there to sift through, and wrap that in this industry kind of ethos that has been here in the past of, I know best. Like, I am the expert in the room. You listen to me. Like, here's the plan. Here's what you got to do, and just follow it. And there wasn't, I know this existed in the practice I worked in before, this aspect of like, yeah, kind of expert knows best. And what I am shifting, and what I know everyone else on this screen is shifting as well, is what you want as the client, right? Like we can start from your side of the coin and what you want and what what matters to you the most, and then move from there, rather than, feeling like someone is telling you what to do with your money. And it's a very different approach. So who wants to expand on that, Jamie or Lisa?
Sure. I have actually an anecdote that I can share. So my business partner and I had, each of our separate clients, and we've merged those clients over time, but generally still meet with a lot of those joint clients together. But there was a recent meeting with one of his clients that I have gotten to know But usually he's the lead advisor in there, and he's got his numbers all penciled out and like, this is how your accounts did. And that particular day, he couldn't be part of that meeting. And so he hands me, all of the numbers, which were great. I already knew them, but, thanks for writing them all down. And not once did we talk about those numbers, because she wanted to talk about the fact that she was looking to buy her first home. And she was scared. And, what do I think of, this particular place? And we spent the time looking at those pictures and doing a little mortgage calculator and like running through her list of like, how she's spending her money currently. Like, does she have enough? What does this look like? We talked about the fact that she's training for this 20-mile walk, and which she never thought she could do. And it was a very different feel, and it was totally my feel. Like, that's what I want to know about. I want to know about the things that either keep you up at night in a good way or a bad way, so that we can talk through them. Because sometimes when you talk through them, you realize that maybe they're not as scary as what they were. So, at the end of the day, she's right around the corner from retirement. So, the numbers are what the numbers are. And if the market stinks, the market stinks. If the market's great, the market's great. But she's still going to try to accomplish her goals. And so we spent that entire hour talking about those things. And never once did we talk about performance. And obviously, our jobs are to help make their money grow. And we all know that. But at the end of the day, talking to her about, what percentage increase her accounts had would not have left her with the same feeling as, you can buy that house. And so that's an amazing feeling to be able to help somebody work through that and know that they're making a confident decision.
Mm-hmm. It all comes back to decision making, right? Like that's what people are actually asking for help with.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to see, there are the people who want to DIY their investments, or they really enjoy learning about, there is that segment of the population. And then there are people that try it. I've had clients who like, okay, I tried, I know I'm like super smart people. And once they get through, like I have one client who's literally a neuroscientist. She's absolutely amazing. And she's like, I should be able to figure this out. And so she tried for a couple of years and it was exhausting. And she's like, I don't want to do that anymore. Right. Like all of the other financial decision making was, the thing that we needed to work through first, but the investments themselves also, she's like, why do I want to spend my time doing when I really don't actually like it? I had the capacity to figure it out. So I tried, and no, I don't need, now that I trust you, Jamie, I feel like you're speaking to that. I trust you to help me walk through these financial decisions. I feel safe. I feel heard. I feel seen. Now also, go do that same thing with my money, so that I don't have to worry about that aspect. Lisa, what's coming up for you?
It's funny. So I'm going to go the complete opposite. I was just listening to a podcast, and Tim Ferriss, which most people know, he's an author and he's done a lot of stuff. He was doing the Q&A, and somebody said, what's the one thing that you've changed your mind on in the last 12 months? And it was a recent podcast, and he was talking about how investment people, the investment gurus, the people he's looked to and all that stuff, he goes, I'm kind of surprised at how none of them know what they're doing during this downturn in the market. And he put it that way, which was kind of interesting. And he said, it just made me realize these so-called experts don't necessarily know what they're doing, that they're, and he actually said it like that, which was kind of interesting. And so I think it's really an interesting take on, if you just come at it from an investment and a performance standpoint, I mean, there have been people that have been very lucky on those times, that, we've all heard that in 2008, we killed it. We did, we've all heard that story that happened. But at the same time, can they replicate it? Do they actually know what they did that was different, and is that the same scenario now? And I think people are starting to realize, because there's so many different opinions of what's happening right now in the markets. You hear one guy say, oh, things are going to start to recover. And then you hear another guy saying, oh, we haven't even hit the lows yet. What are you talking about? There's so many different opinions that are happening right now, that I think that it's really showing a light on the coming at it from just an investment performance standpoint doesn't work. Because if you just come at it from that side of it and you just look at it could go up this amount or it can go down this amount, and you don't take into consideration their planning, their saving strategy, their time horizon, their goals that they're trying to accomplish, they're buying a house, they're wanting to go to Bali next year, whatever all those things are, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't, because we're just looking at a performance of an account that most likely went down last year. And, we're not showing what the impact is over time or how it evens itself out. Or, if you're 40 years old and that's an IRA that you're not going to take from for 20 years, you're not happy about it, but is that really, should we come at it from a different strategy, looking at the planning aspect rather than the investment performance aspect? So I think it's really an interesting world that we're in, because everybody, I feel like, is on TV talking about investment performance, and nobody is in there talking about how do you save more, or how do you, even the word cash is thrown around a lot right now. And most of the time they mean like in a US Treasury, but they're not saying that. They're just saying cash, because we know if it's sitting in cash at the bank, it went down 6.5%, 7% due to inflation last year. So it's just different things like that I think is really important to kind of keep in mind when you're working with professionals, and when you're working with, coming into it with your goals of what you're trying to accomplish and what you want the relationship to look like. I think is taking a stronger and stronger viewpoint, especially when you've got somebody like Tim Ferriss who's making that observation. He's not the only one. Everybody's doing it, and a lot of people are listening to him, which I think is interesting. So
yeah, no, that is super interesting. I feel like from an investment perspective, it also is like there are so many ways. There's so many ways that you can accomplish your goals, and what you're drawn to will also affect who's a good fit for you to work with, right? Like I've talked before, I work with entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs tend to be very creative and they want to try lots of different stuff. So if I come at them and say, all we really should be doing is like ETFs and mutual funds and individual stocks, and that's it, that's not a good fit, right? Because entrepreneurs are like, well, but my friend is starting a company, I don't want to invest in that. And like, I love having real estate, so I want to have some of that. And it all is part of a whole. And so what I noticed previously is that with we called it before the AUM model, the assets under management, the only, where the only way that an advisor gets paid is if, they are managing your assets and charging a percentage. That's the AUM only model. What that ignores, or what it tends to actually do, it ignores the pieces that are outside. So like it could be the 401k, it could be real estate, it could be a business, literally like business valuation and how that's working. And what happens is then any decision that client makes that doesn't bring more money into the assets, I've seen the advisors try to steer the client toward, why would you do that? You can get, an average 8% return over here over time. So just save more money with me. Why? Because they make more money that way. They don't make money if they're only being paid for the assets under management and this person is buying a real estate property. And so the breakdown between client and advisor happens when that client doesn't feel like they can ask anything. Buying real estate, investing in real estate, buying a private equity investment, any of that, like that is a big financial decision. And if you don't feel like you can get true fiduciary advice from your advisor because it's not going to be with them, that's where like mistakes happen, right? It is a big problem. The breakdown of trust is, I have watched it happen, and I have seen the repercussions with clients who did not feel like they could bring those business questions to their financial advisor, and it's devastating. And there is a way, and we are like literally talking about it right now, like if you come at it from a planning perspective where that client can bring everything, that is valuable. I haven't asked this question, but I think we're all on the same page, but tell me if we're not, that we charge separately for the financial plan. I do. Like it has its own charge. So that, like anything, we talk about anything and everything. And then the investment management has its own, it lives in its own place.
Mhm.
But for me, for my clients, that works really, really well so that they know that they can talk to me about anything and I will help them through any financial decision. But yeah, I feel like, again, that goes also to I'm the expert in the room, that we're also breaking down those hierarchies, those pillars, pedestals is what I want to say.
Yeah. Well, I think the hierarchy, I feel like that was something that I was thinking through too. I think clients now, so many people are wanting a true partnership. Like they're wanting a professional that they can collaborate with, opposed to this old school hierarchy of like, this is exactly what you should do, and slightly more of a cookie cutter approach because it's like, well, I've been doing this long enough and this is what everyone does. Like they truly want someone to listen to them and to hear them and to kind of even be a part of it because they have their own ideas that they want to bring to the table. But I think a lot of what we also do is we're that sounding board, but we can be more objective. It's a lot easier for us to not be emotional about their money than it is for them. And so if we can act as that, objective sounding board for them and truly act as that partnership and helping them understand and weigh the pros and cons, I think that's really what clients are looking for now, is someone to walk alongside them and to provide that ongoing advice, opposed to like the one time, here's what I think that you should do and listen to me because, I'm the expert. Like, I think it's much more of a collaborative partnership that clients are looking for now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that speaks to, consulting has become consulting, or the word coaching has become so popular now. And we've been doing consulting for quite a while. We do not have an asset minimum. We don't even need you to have any assets. If you would like a partner, we can be that partner through a consulting relationship. So if we do have a DIYer who likes to do their trades on, Fidelity or TD Ameritrade, totally fine. I have zero problem with that. In fact, if they want to try some things, they're just looking for that sounding board, like Kristin had said. Or if I'm doing college planning, that's a very specific deep dive into the world of college. And so I charge for that specifically, because I'm not looking at how it relates to your retirement and Social Security and things like that, but very specifically, this is what we have, this is what your student is looking at. Let's make sure that we're helping them make the best financial decisions. And so I think to be able to either target a certain area or to be able to provide, that financial advice without the pressure of being like, okay, well, I can't even talk to you unless you have 250 to 500,000 starting. That leaves a whole segment of people who might be, young and up and coming, who haven't built their wealth yet. Why would I not want to work with those people? They need advice just as much as anybody else. The way that we've structured our business too is we do have associate advisors that, if somebody's like, hey, that's still a little bit out of my wheelhouse for cost, we still have very knowledgeable advisors who just have less time than I do. And so we can fit them with the right advisor to at least get them started so that they're not just trying to wing it on their own. Or if it's still not the right time for them, point them in the right direction of like, use these tools to get started. But we don't want anybody to feel like it's out of their reach simply because of their income bracket or whatever their situation might be. Financial advice needs to be available to everyone. And I think being an independent, we can figure out ways to help almost everybody if in fact they actually want to be helped. I do think that we need partners on the client side as well, right? We can't do it all. We can't just give all of our heart and soul and then somebody says, I'm not even interested. We're looking for that fit of like that collaboration too, right? Because we get excited when people when we can make those things happen together versus somebody who's like, I don't really know if I want to do that, or and that's not saying that they can't say no. But certainly it's one aspect of a relationship that works versus one that might be just more trouble than it's worth too. So having a partner on the other side, and not just the partner as the financial advisor, I think is so important to all of us too, that fit, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Lisa, what were you going to share?
I would say, especially with I always say it's not just a partnership, it's an accountability side of things a bit, not in a scary way, but that same, like, I can't leave Patricia at the gym by herself just because I don't want to go thing, right? So essentially, it's about accountability. It's about having somebody know what your dreams and goals are and ask you, have you changed it? Are we still on track for this? Because oftentimes, especially as women, since I work a lot with women too, we tend to, if we're not necessarily making the strides that we think we should be, dependent on lots of different factors, most of them, self put on by ourselves, a little bit of a perfectionist side of ours, that we have as women. Essentially, if we are not making the goals that we think we need to be making, the strides, we tend to go, oh, it's just impossible, I'm not going to do it. Or we kind of forget about it and try to minimize them. So, oh, I don't really need to go to Bali this year. I can go in a couple of years. Or I don't really need to make that investment in my business. I can do that in a couple of years, or maybe I can find this other thing that's gonna, so we tend to put ourselves last on the totem pole a lot. And so essentially having that accountability partner saying, no, you need to take care of yourself. This is part of self-care, is financial education, financial advice, taking a look at your financial picture on a regular basis. That's part of self-care. And you are allowed to be quote unquote selfish and, put yourself at the top of the list and to focus on goals that are important to you. So I think alongside of, that advice side, having the right partner on the other side, we're here to just keep encouraging you to take care of yourself based off of our original conversations, and not just the original conversations, but the conversations you have throughout the years and years of working together, because we should really know who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, what your big dreams are, what your goals are, how they've changed over the years. That's part of that conversation. So I would say that that's a really important aspect that I work with a lot with clients in particular, is trying to let them not forget what the commitment they made to themselves was.
Oh, I love that. And that just like spoke to that, like the actual value of the ongoing relationship. Someone who has been with you for a while, that when you start from that place, and Jamie, you called this out so beautifully, like the relationship on both sides, right? Like that the client is doing their part, bringing the information that we need to do a really good plan, being present for the conversation and showing up as well. And that ongoing partnership, when you can be together for, years, when you find that, and that happens, right? Like when you find the financial advisor that you feel comfortable with, people tend to stay. And if you are doing the planning, if you are doing things in a way where, you're helping people make financial decisions rather than, like we've been talking about this whole time, just, well, here's what we invested in and here's how it did, and yay or boo or whatever, right? When you're actually helping them make those financial decisions year over year, that's a sticky client, because you are part of their team. So yes. I love that. So let's do one more round robin of, final thoughts. Where can people find you? And everyone's information will be in the show notes. If you heard someone's voice and you were like, oh yeah, I don't know why, I'm just drawn to her, like, go do it. Like, go check out the website, go, have a conversation. There's a reason why, any one person, pulls on your heart more than another. And so, yeah, I'd love to get everyone's voice in the room one more time. Kristin, where can people find you?
Sure. Well, I was going to offer this up for everyone as well, because I think we're all pretty active on LinkedIn. That to me, I think that's a great place to start, because there may be something that you heard that resonated with you today. But I also think if you check us out on LinkedIn and, look at past posts, follow us for a while. I have people all the time that will reach out that honestly had no idea were even following me. And they'll acknowledge that and say, hey, I've been following you for, 3 months. And I love your posts. It feels like every time you write something, it seems like you're writing just to me, and I don't even know who they are. And so I think it gives you a really good idea of who we are as people, who we are as professionals, what we believe in, how we work with clients. And I think it gives you a really good idea of our personalities and what it's like to work together. And as we've already said, that personality fit is really important, because we talk through some heavy stuff and some emotional stuff, and you can be pretty vulnerable. And we can also talk through some really exciting things, and we want to be there to be a cheerleader for you and celebrate you as well. But that's really only going to happen if we can have an open and honest dialogue. And I think that comes with having a partnership with someone that you feel comfortable with. And so I think that personality fit is really, really important. So I'd say LinkedIn is the easiest way. As Hannah already said, our information will be in the show notes, the website, all that good stuff. But honestly, if I were trying to find someone now, I would start with LinkedIn.
That's great. Awesome. Jamie, what about you?
Yeah, certainly LinkedIn. Websites are always great too. Most of ours are certainly like warm referrals and whatnot, but we're also licensed pretty much across the US. So obviously sometimes it's a client or a family member who introduces us. But to me, that initial consultation where you get a chance to connect with somebody, I prefer to do them face to face. Second would be Zoom, just so I can, see people and interact with them. I want to see how they're responding to my questions. You can't always tell from emails, from text messages, from phone calls, what people are really feeling, but their face tells you a lot. So to me, that body language is really important. So I think anytime that you're embarking on finding a partner, having at least some sort of face-to-face contact initially is a great way to start. And then, be prepared to ask them hard questions too, right? Like I'm going to ask some hard questions. They often say, well, what should I bring? And they'll rattle off, oh, taxes and my statements. And I'm like, bring your questions, tell me what it is that you want to know. I don't even care what you have at this point in time, because that to me is not one of the fundamental pieces of how we can work together. So if you want to bring it, great, but I may or may not even look at it by the end of that appointment. So to me, really having that face-to-face, as Kristin had said, that connection of who you want to actually, if you will, spill the beans to a little bit and feel like you're in that safe place. So, I don't know if there's like extra places in that answer, but
I
make
love
sure you
it.
do diligence too, right?
Yes, I love that. And Lisa, what about you?
LinkedIn, very active on that. Our website is always good. We also have a YouTube channel that I do weekly videos on just little 2-3 minute things. Usually just inspired by conversations I had with clients that week. So, happy to have you look at that and check that out, and hopefully get some good information that you can take with you and do something actionable with it. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is you want to have an advisor that's going to get you to act on things, act in the way that you want to act, that's going to be in your best interest. Because a lot of times, you'll sit and talk with people a lot, but if no action is taken, or you don't feel like the process is moving forward, are things really getting better for you?
Right.
So I think that's a big thing, is, really having that person that you connect with, that you feel comfortable with, that explains things in a way that you understand, or that you're not afraid to say, I don't understand what you're talking about. Can you explain it a different way? That's really important. But you also want to have somebody who's focused on trying to help you take action and actually move forward in the planning that you're doing.
Oh,
So
I love that.
That's an important part. Yeah.
Love that. Yep. And the same for me. I'm active on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's, I'm everywhere. And yeah, the connection piece is always so important first. So thank you, all three of you, for being here with me and for being in this space with me, and for uplifting other humans in their money. It's so important. This is it's the heart and it's the head that, I feel like we are the connection. We bring them together in a way that, this is the way the industry is moving because it's kinder and it's more empowering for clients. So thank you all so much. And I can't wait to talk to you all again. Bye.
Thanks for the see ya.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if anything resonated with you from this episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Hannah, HANNAH, @expansiveceo.com and tell me about it. And if you're ready for your greatest expansion, you can find ways to work with me at expansiveceo.com and at x2wealthplanning.com. That's X, the numeral 2, wealthplanning.com. So until next time, remember that there is enough. You are enough. And your birthright in this lifetime is to be expansive.